Okay, let's say about Ella, who I mean, Ella was beyond compare. Really, the older I get, the more I hear of Ella, because the more I realize how amazing she was in terms of what she could do with a song and how she got into it. I remember a stupid thing in Downbeat was an argument between Nat Hentoff and Leonard Feather about Ella and Billy and about the song thing. And Nat was dismissive of Ella in terms of, like compared to Billy, she didn't have, it was all beautiful voice, but surfacey, which is extreme, I like Nat a lot. He was an influence on me when I started to write. But that was really, I mean, I shouldn't use any bad words, but because she grasped the essence of a song, aside from having the beautiful voice and perfect intonation and everything else and phrasing. Her diction when she was singing was, perfect. But there also the feeling. So anyway, I'll get to that in a minute, but there was a guy on WNYC television who had an interview show with jazz people. And I had done something with him once before, and he asked me, he was going to have Ella on, which was not easy because you had to go through Norman Granz and everything. But she was appearing somewhere in New York, so it was, it was publicity. It was good. So it was just him. I've forgotten his name. He was not terribly great as an interviewer, and Ella and me. So, and Ella was accompanied by a PR woman, and so we did the show, and apparently we had a good vibe. I told the audience, or whatever, I said that one of the first, jazz records I had was Chick Webb, Dipsy Doodle, which was, right kind of song for a kid. And anyway, when it was over, she, not the PR person, but she said, can I give you a ride? And so I said, this was way downtown where NYC is, so I said, sure, thank you. So we got into the back, and the lady was there was a chauffeured limousine, and we were talking a little bit, and then she said, because the first of they weren't going to drop me off. I said, no, don't take me. Where she was staying, a hotel where she was staying was not far from where I was going, which at the time I think was the Downbeat office. But when we came to her hotel, she said, would you like to have a drink? But the PR person immediately stopped it. She said, no, you have to, you have an appointment to go such and such, she really cut it off. But there goes my chance to have had a one-on-one with Ella. I think she kind of liked me. So, but she was so sweet, and then near at the very end, Norman Granz, for some reason, Norman usually didn't like critics. There were a few that he liked, but for some reason or other, he seemed to like me. So he called me and said that Ella was going to be at, it was a big venue in New York, and I think it was a Radio City Music Hall or something. He called me and he said, please, if you can, he said, I'd like to invite you to hear Ella. And he was saying, without saying it outright, he was saying that this was probably the last chance you'll have to see her, to hear her. And at that point, when she came out, you know, she was nearly blind by then, and she was in a wheelchair. And nevertheless, she, you know, she sang beautifully, but it was kind of, you know, it was definitely sad to see that. But Norman, without saying as much, you know, made it clear that, you know, he felt that I should go. The next case is Sassy, Sarah Vaughan, who was from Newark, and one of the couple of times that I got near her, aside from seeing her on stage or whatever, was at an event in Newark, which was kind of a homecoming thing for her. And since I was, you know, Institute of Jazz Studies or whatever, so I was backstage, and I had already met her once before, but I wouldn't have expected her to remember that. So it was nice. She was like one of the guys, you know. I mean, this is she, of course, in her artistry, I was thinking Sassy was ultra feminine. I think, you know, that playfulness, you know, with her voice and everything, you know. But outside of that, she was like one of the boys. And the first time I became aware of that was at a festival in Holland. I forget the name of the town, small town, and there was a bar that was the hangout for the musicians. You know, the stage was very near there, and it was all done by Dutch radio, and it was a broadcast. So at the bar, you know, that's what we all hung out, and I walked in there, and Sassy had her usual accompaniment, which was, you know, she had a really good group. Roy Haynes was the drummer, and I forget who the other two were. I think the bass player maybe it was Joe Benjamin, I don't know. But anyway, they were sitting at the bar, so I knew Roy to an extent. I could come over and have a drink, and introduced me to Sassy, who was sitting on a stool, and that's where, you know, she was just like one of the guys, you know. I mean, there was the usual kind of conversation, which was, you know, really kind of masculine in orientation, and she was right with it, and she was very down home, you know. So that was nice. And then another time I saw Roy, and actually it was I got involved in doing there was a series of television shows. It was, I think it was American Masters. It was the thing for Channel 13. And there was one on Sarah, which I got involved in. I wrote it, in other words, I wrote the script for it. And had a little bit to do with what the content would be. And this was posthumous. But I interviewed Billy Eckstein, who was a wonderful interview. We had done something together when I did that TV show in Chicago with Bob Kaiser. We did you know, and he was so easy to work with as well. But I did him, and I did Roy. But Roy said that Sassy was so much fun to work with, to be on the road with. And he said at one time, they were on the bus, on the band bus, and she insisted on letting the driver let her drive the bus. She wanted to drive the bus. And he said he was a little nervous, and the other, he said she took over and she drove it like a pro, you know. So this is the side of her which is not, I haven't read the biography, the recent biography. I understand it's good, and I want to make it my business to read it, but she was, you know, from my experience with her and what I heard about her, she was really, you know, she was really a down-home chick, you know.